In 18th century Russia, aristocrats were growing pineapples in the snow, not importing them, growing them, in pits dug 2 meters below the freezing line, covered with glass frames and heated by 15 tons of decomposing horse manure, packed into trenches on either side of the growing bed. The heat from the rot passed through cavity walls into a central chamber where tropical fruit grew at 25 degrees Celsius, while the surface above sat at -20. Peter the Great imported the technique from the Netherlands in the 1720s. By the end of that century, Russian estates were not just growing pineapples for their own tables. They were exporting them to Western Europe. 80 new varieties were bred in Russian soil. Peasant farms ran their own pits. The entire operation used zero external energy, just biology, just decomposition, just the insulating power of the earth. Across the English Channel, the Victorians were doing the same thing. At Helligan in Cornwall, pineapple pits used the identical principle. 3 interconnected trenches covered with glass. Outer trenches packed with manure. Inner trench warm enough for tropical fruit. The system was so effective that when archaeologists restored the original pit at Helligan in 1993, they grew a pineapple using the exact same 200-year-old design. The first fruit was sent to Queen Elizabeth, but these were expensive operations. They required enormous quantities of manure, teams of skilled gardeners, and wealthy patrons willing to spend fortunes on exotic fruit. The principle worked. The scale did not. The technique stayed locked behind aristocratic walls for centuries. Then, in the 1990s, someone stripped it down to the bones. A group of volunteers working with the Benson Agriculture and Food Institute arrived in the high plains near La Paz, Bolivia. The altitude was over 3,800 meters. The air was thin, dry, and brutally cold at night. Daytime temperatures could swing 30 degrees in a matter of hours. Growing seasons were short. Nutritious food was scarce. The farmers in these communities were surviving, not thriving. The Benson Institute had a question. Could you take the same underground growing principle that Russian aristocrats and Victorian lords had used for luxury fruit and strip away everything except the physics? No manure heating, no skilled gardeners, no glass panes, no money. They dug a rectangular pit 6 to 8 feet deep into the earth. They oriented the longest side to face the winter sun. They used the excavated soil to build a berm on the back wall, creating a slope. They laid a simple frame of local timber or bamboo across the top. They stretched 2 layers of plastic sheeting over the frame with an air gap between them for insulation. Total material cost $250 to $300. They called it a Walipini. The word comes from the Aymara language, spoken by indigenous peoples of the Andes. It means place of warmth, and it worked. Here is why. At the surface in the Bolivian Altiplano, nighttime temperatures can drop below freezing even in months that are technically summer. Wind strips heat from any exposed structure within minutes. A conventional greenhouse sitting on the surface fights this battle every single night. Glass or plastic walls radiate heat outward. Cold air pushes through every gap. Without a heater, a surface greenhouse in that climate is useless by midnight. But 6 to 8 feet below the surface, the rules change completely. At that depth, the soil temperature stabilizes. In most parts of the world, the ground holds a nearly constant temperature between 10 and 15 degrees Celsius year-round. This is true in Bolivia. It is true in Montana. It is true in Scandinavia. The Earth does not follow the weather. It follows a much slower rhythm, absorbing summer heat over months and releasing it through winter at the same patient pace. When you dig a growing space down to that depth, you are placing your plants inside a thermal envelope that the earth maintains for free. The soil walls absorb heat during the day when sunlight pours through the plastic roof. At night, when the surface temperature crashes, those same walls radiate their stored heat back into the growing space. While the air above might swing from 20 degrees to -5 in a single night, the interior of the Walipini holds steady, warm enough for tomatoes, warm enough for lettuce, warm enough for peppers, in some cases, warm enough for citrus. The angle is calculated to match the winter sun's low trajectory, maximizing the amount of light that penetrates to the growing beds below. The angle is calculated to match the winter sun's low trajectory, maximizing the amount of light that penetrates to the growing beds below. In summer, when the sun is high, the angle naturally limits overheating. The design self-regulates across seasons without any adjustment. The double layer of plastic sheeting serves the same function as double glazed windows. The trapped air between the 2 layers acts as insulation. reducing heat loss through the roof by a significant margin. Some builders have measured up to 90% more heat retention compared to a single layer. And then there is the wind factor. A conventional greenhouse is a sail. High winds stress the frame, tear plastic, shatter glass, and strip heat. A Walipini sits below grade. Wind passes over the top. The structure is essentially invisible to storms. In prairie regions, mountain valleys, and exposed plateaus, this single advantage can mean the difference between a greenhouse that survives 10 years and one that survives 10 weeks. The Benson Institute designed the original Walipini to feed 7 people year-round from a growing area of roughly 90 square feet per person. That is a small garden producing vegetables continuously through every season, including months when every field on the surface is frozen solid and bare. Now, the Walipini is not a magic hole in the ground. There are real engineering considerations that determine whether it works or fails. Drainage is the most critical. You are digging a pit. Water flows downhill. If you choose a low spot in the terrain, you will build an expensive mud pond. The site must be on a slight slope or elevated ground with well-draining soil. Sandy or gravelly soils are ideal. Heavy clay expands when wet, contracts when dry. Wall reinforcement matters. Some soils hold a vertical cut for years. Others will slump after the first heavy rain. Depending on your soil type, you may need to line the walls. The original Bolivian designs used whatever was locally available. The principle is simple. Keep the walls standing. Everything else is flexible. Ventilation is essential. An enclosed underground space with sunlight pouring in can overheat rapidly on clear days, even in winter. More sophisticated builders add buried ventilation tubes that draw cool air from underground and exhaust warm air from the peak. Humidity requires attention. The underground environment naturally holds more moisture. For most crops, this is an advantage. Reduced evaporation means less watering. For most crops, this is an advantage. Reduced evaporation means less watering. But excessive humidity without air movement creates conditions for mold and fungal disease. Adequate ventilation solves this, and latitude matters. The Walipini was designed near the equator, where even winter sun is relatively high in the sky. As you move further north or south, the winter sun angle drops. At high latitudes, a pit that is too deep may not receive enough direct sunlight. Builders in northern climates have adapted by making the pit shallower, widening the opening. Since the original Benson Institute prototype, the Walipini concept has spread across every continent. Builders in Nebraska, Montana, Canada, Scandinavia, and the UK have constructed variations. Russ Finch, a builder in Alliance, Nebraska, developed a commercial-scale, earth-sheltered greenhouse he calls the greenhouse in the snow. He grows citrus trees through Nebraska winters. His system adds earth tubes, buried pipes that circulate air through the soil to store and retrieve thermal energy, extending the Walipini principle even further. Mike Oler, author of the Earth-Sheltered Solar Greenhouse book, adapted underground housing principles to greenhouse design and published detailed plans for DIY builders. The permaculture community has embraced and modified the concept globally. Every adaptation is different. Everyone uses the same physics, and the cost remains almost absurd. The original Benson Institute design cost $250 to $300 in materials. Modern builders using reclaimed materials have gone lower. The most expensive component is typically the plastic sheeting. The earth does not wear out. The hole does not expire. The thermal mass does not degrade. The Walipini eliminates the heating bill entirely, not reduces it, eliminates it. The earth provides the heat. The sun provides the light. The plastic keeps the system sealed. There is nothing to plug in, nothing to fuel, nothing to maintain beyond the covering. A rectangular hole in the ground oriented toward the sun, covered in plastic, using physics that Russian aristocrats understood 300 years ago, and Andean farmers perfected for $300. The soil beneath your feet right now is holding a temperature between 10 and 15 degrees Celsius. It has been holding it all winter. It will hold it all summer. It does not know there is a blizzard above. It does not care. The only question is whether you will use it.